Let's begin by looking at the most common, socially acceptable, and heavily rewarded addiction in the modern workplace. How many times today did you check your phone while someone else was sitting right in front of you talking to you? How often do you eat your lunch with one hand while typing an email with the other? How often do you measure the success of your day not by the impact of your decisions, but by how utterly exhausted you feel when you finally close your laptop? How many times have you replied to a message within 2 minutes, not because the issue required a fast response, but because you wanted to prove to the system that you were on top of things? In our corporate culture, we wear our busyness like a badge of honor. We humble brag about it. We tell each other we are swamped, drowning, and putting out fires, and we say it with a secret, twisted sense of pride. We have convinced ourselves that exhaustion is a proxy for importance. But if we are honest, there is a massive, unbridgeable difference between moving fast and actually going somewhere. And that is the illusion of urgency. It is the subconscious belief that if we stop moving, we lose our value. It is a culture where everything is declared a top priority, which, if you understand the origin of the word priority, is a mathematical and linguistic impossibility. You cannot have five number one priorities. Stay with me until the end of this episode. We are going to look at the dark neuroscience of our addiction to adrenaline, the ancient philosophy of how we measure the worth of our time, and I will share a deeply uncomfortable story about a week where my own obsession with being the most responsive person in the room almost cost me my deepest, most meaningful. Welcome to the H2H experiment. I'm João and I am your host. In today's episode, we're exploring a silent epidemic in modern leadership. We are deconstructing hurry sickness and learning how to reclaim our attention, our strategy, and our sanity from a world that's constantly demanding our immediate reaction. To understand why we are always rushing, we have to look past our to do lists and look directly at the chemistry of the brain. We have to look at the biology of panic. When a notification pings, when an email with a red urgent flag drops into our inbox, or when a sudden unexpected crisis erupts in a team channel, your brain does not know the difference between a corporate email and a physical threat. It immediately releases a massive spike of adrenaline and cortisol. Adrenaline gives you the physical energy and the narrowed focus to fight the fire. And when you hit send on that quick reply, when you resolve that minor crisis, your brain hits you with a shot of dopamine, the chemical reward for surviving the threat. Over time, your brain begins to crave this chemical cocktail. You literally become addicted to the rush of the crisis. Psychologists call this condition hurry sickness. It is a continuous, buzzing state of low-grade anxiety where you feel a chronic sense of time urgency, even when there is no actual deadline. It's the feeling of walking fast to the coffee machine, even when you have nowhere to be. But here's the neurological cost. When you're suffering from hurry sickness, you experience what scientists call cognitive tunneling. Your brain's prefrontal cortex, the area responsible for deep strategic, empathetic, and creative thought, effectively shuts down to conserve energy for the emergency. You lose the biological capacity to think long term, to see the big picture, or to connect with the human being across the table because your nervous system is convinced that you are under constant immediate attack. You aren't being highly productive. You are just chemically addicted to panic, and panic is a terrible foundation for leadership. To break this illusion, we have to look backward. The ancient Greeks had two different distinct words for time, and understanding the tension between them is key to breaking the illusion of urgency. The first word is chronos. This is clock time. It is sequential, measurable, linear, and finite. It is the ticking of the seconds, the schedule in your calendar, the deadlines, the fiscal quarters. Since the Industrial Revolution, when we started punching clocks in factories, the modern corporate world has become an absolute slave to chronos. Time is money, we say. So we slice our days into 15-minute increments, optimize our calendars, and try to squeeze as much frantic activity into the container of chronos as possible. The second word is kairos. This is deep time. It translates roughly to the supreme moment or the opportune time. Kairos is not measured by the ticking of a clock, but by the depth, quality, and resonance of the experience. Kairos is the breakthrough idea that suddenly arrives during a quiet, unstructured walk. It is the moment of pure, uninterrupted connection when you are mentoring a struggling team member and you finally see the light bulb go in their eyes. It is the deep flow state of writing a strategy that will change the trajectory of your business for the next 5 years. The illusion of urgency forces us to sacrifice kairos on the altar of chronos. We trade deep, meaningful, long-term impact for shallow, rapid-fire tasks that gives us a quick dopamine hit, but leave no lasting legacy. Philosophically, when we rush through everything, we are commodifying our own presence. We are treating our lives and our leaderships as a frantic checklist of items to be crossed off, rather than a space to be intentionally inhabited. We arrive at the end of the week breathless, only to realize we ran in a circle. Now, let's widen the lens and look at the devastating organizational cost of this addiction to speed. You are very likely familiar with the Eisenhower matrix, the classic time management framework that separates tasks into urgent versus important. In a healthy organization, leaders spend the majority of their time in the important but not urgent quadrant. That is where strategy, relationship building, and proactive planning live. But in a culture infected by the illusion of urgency, the matrix completely collapses. The urgent quadrant becomes a black hole that swallows everything else. When the leadership team operates from a place of chronic anxiety, they declare that everything is a top priority. And when everything is a top priority, effectively nothing is a priority. This creates a culture of what I call performative productivity. Teams stop being architects of the future and become full-time firefighters of the present. They stop asking the critical question, is this the right thing to build? And they start asking a dangerous question. How fast can I get this off my desk and onto someone else's? Furthermore, urgency is often used as a shield for bad planning. If your team is constantly putting out fires, you don't have an execution problem. You have an arsonist in the form of poor strategy. Speed without direction isn't velocity. It's just spinning your wheels. And an organization that is constantly spinning its wheels in the mud of urgency will eventually, inevitably, burn out its engine. Now, I would like to share with you a realization that hit me hard not too long ago. A moment where I had to confront my own hypocrisy on this exact topic. I had a week where I felt incredibly, almost invincibly productive. I was in the zone. I was clearing my inbox the moment emails arrived, attaining the holy grail of inbox zero. I was answering messages within 30 seconds. I was jumping in and out of back-to-back meetings, making rapid-fire decisions, and unblocking my team at lightning speed. By Friday afternoon, I felt like a machine. I felt totally indispensable. I was on fire. I was the hub that kept the wheel turning. But then I took a breath. I opened my planner and looked at my actual strategic goals for the week. You know, the deep work. The redesign of a major client framework, the writing a core piece of thought leadership. The work that actually would move the needle for my team and for the business and would secure the future of the business. I hadn't touched a single one of them. Then I realized with a heavy, sinking dose of humility that my hyper-responsiveness was actually a sophisticated defense mechanism. It's so much easier to answer 50 shallow transactional emails than it is to sit in silence, face a blank page, and wrestle with one complex, difficult, deeply ambiguous problem. I was using the feeling of urgency to avoid the discomfort of deep work. I wasn't leading the business. I was just reacting to the noise faster than anyone else. I was mistaking motion for progress. Now, breaking the illusion of urgency requires something that feels very unnatural and even slightly dangerous to the modern high achieving leader: the courage to be slow. I use the word courage deliberately because when you slow down in a culture that worships speed, people will question you. You will feel the guilt of not replying immediately. You will feel fear that you are being perceived as lazy or out of touch or disconnected. But slowness is not laziness. Slowness is precision. It requires the discipline to look at a burning fire, assess it, and confidently say, that is not my fire to put out right now. It requires the immense emotional regulation to let a non-urgent message sit on to be read for solid 4 hours while you give your unbroken attention to what actually matters. As an H2H leader, your ultimate value is not in your speed of response. Your value is in your depth of thought. Your team does not need you to be the fastest reply in their inbox. They have AI and automated responders for that. They need you to be the clearest, calmest, most strategic mind in the room. Now, let's move to my favorite part of every episode, the weight to rate experiment. And this one is the strategic delay. This week, I want you to experiment with breaking the chemical addiction to urgency. We are going to intentionally induce a little of dopamine withdrawal. For the next 3 days, I challenge you to fundamentally alter the start of your day. Do not open your email, do not check your messaging apps, and do not look at your metrics for the first 90 minutes of your workday. Use that first hour and a half exclusively for kairos time. Dedicate it to deep, strategic, proactive work. Write the vision document. Map out the new architecture. Think about the team dynamic. If the thought of doing this makes your chest tight, if you feel an overwhelming itch to just quickly check your phone, notice that anxiety. That is not responsibility speaking. That is the dopamine withdrawal. That is the hurry sickness fighting for its life. Sit with the discomfort. Let the artificial manufactured fires burn for 90 minutes. See what happens when you proactively decide what your priority is, rather than letting the random demands of your inbox decide it for you. You will likely find that the world did not end, but your clarity multiplied. All right, now let's wrap up this episode. Urgency is loud. It screams for your attention. Importance is quiet. It waits patiently for you to find it. The illusion of urgency will always try to convince you that the loudest thing in the room is the most critical thing in the world. Leadership is the daily, rigorous practice of turning down the noise so you can actually hear the signal. It is the difficult transition from merely managing your time to fiercely protecting your attention. If this episode resonated with you, I invite you to join the movement of intentional human-centered leadership. Follow our latest reflection, deep dives, and ongoing discussions on LinkedIn or Substack. And explore more H2H tools and frameworks in our website, the h2hexperiment.com. We're also present in the community, the ECXO platform. And for the full comprehensive roadmap of transforming your leadership from constantly reactive to deeply proactive, check out our CX Revolution book series available on Amazon. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for intentionally slowing down. And thank you for having the courage to ignore the noise. Because the faster you run, the less you actually see. Choose depth over speed. Thank you once again. See you next time. Bye.